anybody ever heard of the ACT program? Awesome. So this program is all about creating self-starting conversations with our staff members, making them really intentional with their conversations with other staff members when they're having their own personal conflicts that we necessarily do not need to be a part of. So, what are some things that frustrate us about our staff? They don't take initiative sometimes. They have a lack of problem-solving skills. And they worry about their own reputations when conflicts do arise. And basically, they avoid their peer contact or conflict resolution like it's the camp crud. They do not want to have these conversations with each other because they are having fear of hurting someone else's feelings. They have a fear of making the conflict increasingly worse for themselves and for other people. And they don't want to get their feelings hurt, sometimes more than they have already been hurt, right? And they're also afraid of gossip. They do not want to start a conversation with somebody else, like say, I'm talking to Allison, I don't want to have this conversation because I don't want to hear what somebody else is going to have to say when she's mad and talks to somebody else about it. And they also don't want to supervise up if they're having a personal conflict resolution with their supervisor. So what can we do as camp directors to help them during this? We can ACT. So it's a simple acronym to help staff mediate their own conflict resolutions and take ownership of their feelings in a professional way. Our F is supposed to be silent, but it's way more fun if you say it. So can everybody say ACT? ACT. Perfect, you will never forget this. So the A, what do you think the A could potentially stand for? Have anybody have any clue?
Ask questions.
No. It's being aware. We're being aware of their own feelings and when they're upset. So for example, if I'm upset, I want to ask myself, why am I feeling this way? Is it something that somebody else did and it's somebody else's actions? Was it somebody else's words that bothered me? And how potentially was the other person feeling in that moment? Why did they make this decision that made you feel this way? And we always tell our staff, if you feel this way in 24 hours, then you need to move on to the second part. Because sometimes somebody says something quick in the moment, after 24 hours you're like, okay, I'm over it. But after 24 hours sometimes you're like, okay, this is really still bothering me. So this is when we have to ACT. Number C, letter C? What do you think C stands for?
Chat.
Close. Yes, communicate. Thanks, Anna. Timing is everything when we're acting. The communication, you want to make sure it's never in front of campers, right? And it's a space that they can both talk freely. So maybe this is a conversation that happens after you put your campers to bed, and you need to pull your co-counselor aside because you're having this moment. Maybe it's when you're both in your time off and you're not in the staff house because you need to be, somewhere in a unit away from everyone else to have this personal conversation with them. And you want enough physical time to have this conversation. So don't make it 5 minutes before you have to pick up your campers at the pool. And pro tip for us, my staff would change every single week. Not the staff as a whole, but your staff group that you're working with. So part of their beginning process of each week was to sit down and talk about how they wanted to be seen. So if I was having an issue, maybe I would prefer a note like, hey, I'd like to talk to you, or I want like a, hey, can we see later on today? And that really helped because then everybody never felt attacked when their communication portion was being asked of them. So T, this is a hard one to come up with on your own, so we're going to together find a solution. And in this portion, after you're communicating, you're going to find that solution together, and you're addressing this issue that's at hand head on. Why do we need to resolve this problem? Most of the time, it's because somebody said something to somebody that they didn't appreciate, or it's something on a personal level. So we're not talking necessarily about their issues, you showed up late to the pool. This is more of a, you said something about me to someone else. So you want to come up with the terms of agreement within each other and have clear expectations about what those agreements are going to mean. And be sure that each person, even if I was the person that was being hurt, I'm going to go on and also have a portion that I'm going to follow up on. So you want to make sure that both parties have something. The not so silent is the follow-up. This is the most important part that everyone forgets. Yeah, you're going to find that solution, but are you actually following up on that solution? So did each staff member hold up their agreement? Did they choose a deadline? You know, by tomorrow we need to revisit this. And actually talk about it, and don't just assume that things got better, because that's something our staff are really good at. And if they're not getting anywhere after the follow-up stage, maybe that's the time that your supervisor needs to be brought in to help you out. So a good example of when the ACT program could be initiated. So Counselor Salary is upset because she's had a miscommunication with her head counselor, Jane. Jane was complaining she was hungry before her break and didn't eat much at lunch due to a camper conflict. So Sally offered that Jane could go into her marked food box in the staff house to make some mac and cheese, which Jane kindly accepted, but soon enough Jane was consistently taking food out of Sally's box for the remainder of the week, leaving Sally's box empty by Friday. This is something that necessarily we don't need to be involved in, but they can use the ACT program to work through this together. So don't worry, Sally, you just remember to act. So again, does this actually work? It does. We did this for the first time last summer, and it caused so much less stress on my admin team because the staff were going ahead and acting on their own, and they would joke about it too. They'd come up to our table and be like, "Hey Anna, we act today," and it worked. So they were totally about it. We did it on the second day of staff training so that it was made sure it was going to be something that was starting right away. And we also added an ACT session into weekly paperwork, so we do an evaluation of the staff group each week, and it would be like, did you have any ACT moments? And that would help us kind of gauge where everyone was at. And we also made a big poster that had ACT on it, and all the staff would sign it, and we put it up in the staff house. And they kept it there the entire summer. So that is the ACT.